Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a moment in every believer's life when it feels like everything has stopped. The doors you prayed for seem locked. The people you trusted walked away. The dreams you once held so tightly begin to fade in the shadows of disappointment. You whisper to yourself, maybe it's over. But I came to tell you today, it's not over. What looked the end was only a divine pause before a new beginning. When life seems to crumble and every door shuts in front of you, it's easy to believe that the story is over. Yet, what looks like an ending to us is often the beginning of something extraordinary in the hands of God. He is not limited by time, loss, or circumstance. He takes what seems broken, abandoned, or buried and breathes His divine power into it, turning defeat into destiny. Every believer faces moments when dreams fade, relationships fall apart, or seasons of purpose appear to close. But in those quiet moments of uncertainty, God is working behind the scenes, transforming endings into stepping stones toward a greater purpose. He never wastes pain or failure. Instead, He reshapes them into the foundation of a new beginning that reveals His glory. In Scripture, we see this truth repeated again and again. When Joseph was betrayed by his brothers, thrown into a pit, and sold into slavery, it looked like the end of his dream. Yet, through every trial, God was positioning him for the palace. What appeared to be a cruel ending was, in reality, the divine road to his destiny. When Jesus was nailed to the cross, the world thought it was over. Hope seemed lost, faith seemed shattered, and the story appeared to end in tragedy. But 3 days later, the greatest beginning in human history took place: the resurrection. God turned the darkest moment into the dawn of redemption, showing that no ending is final when He is involved. Every closed door has a divine reason, even when it hurts. Sometimes God allows endings to protect you from things that were never meant to stay. He closes certain chapters so He can write new ones filled with peace, growth, and divine purpose. The loss you cry over today could be the soil in which tomorrow's miracle will grow. God never ends something without the intention of bringing something greater to life. He allows endings not to destroy you, but to redefine you. It's through the breaking that He prepares you for blessing, through the pruning that He makes room for fruitfulness. When we trust Him, in the middle of what feels like the end, we give Him permission to reshape our story. Faith is not about understanding everything God does. It's about believing He's still working when nothing makes sense. Often, the most painful endings are the birthplaces of our greatest callings. You may have lost something dear, faced rejection, or felt forgotten, but God is never finished. He specializes in taking what seems dead and reviving it with purpose. What you call over, He calls preparation. What you see as loss, He sees as transition. He is not just the God of beginnings. He is the God who begins again. Every ending is an invitation to trust Him deeper and to believe that His plan still stands strong, even when everything else seems to fall apart. There are seasons in life when everything seems to stop, when prayers appear unanswered, and when the future looks uncertain. It is in these moments that the heart grows weary, wondering if change will ever come. Yet God works in rhythms and seasons, and what feels like delay is often divine preparation. Next month is not just another page on the calendar. It represents a prophetic turning point where God begins to unfold what He has been forming in silence. What looks ordinary in the natural may carry extraordinary promise in the spiritual. The same God who separated light from darkness and called forth life from emptiness is preparing to breathe new beginnings into your situation. Every ending you have endured, every closed door, every moment of stillness has been setting the stage for a fresh move of God. God's timing is always perfect. When He says it is time, no obstacle can stop His will. The months that have passed may have felt like waiting in the wilderness, but every wilderness leads to a promised land. The struggles you have faced are not signs of abandonment. They are evidence that something new is on the horizon. God often allows everything to seem quiet before a breakthrough, because He wants to make sure your heart is ready to receive the new season He is sending. Next month may be the time when the long-awaited prayer is answered, when the opportunity finally arrives, when healing begins to manifest, and when clarity replaces confusion. The shift you've been praying for could come suddenly, for God's favor often moves without warning, but always with purpose. When God begins again, He does not recycle what was lost. He restores it in a greater form. The new beginning He brings is not a repetition of the past, but a complete transformation. He turns weakness into wisdom, pain into power, and delay into divine acceleration. Just because this month has been hard does not mean the next one will be the same. God's mercy is new every morning, and His faithfulness renews with each rising sun. The change may not come exactly how you expect, but it will come exactly when you need it. The same Spirit that raised Jesus from the dead lives in you, and that Spirit is already stirring the winds of renewal around your life. Your next month carries the potential for restoration, opportunities and breakthroughs that eyes have not seen. The doors that were once closed will begin to open, not because of your strength, but because of His divine favor. God has marked the upcoming season with purpose, and the waiting you've endured is about to make sense. Every challenge you faced has prepared you for the new that is coming. Heaven's calendar is turning, and your name is written on it. The chapter ahead will not repeat your pain, it will redeem it. The same God who carried you through your ending is now ready to usher you into a brand new beginning. Life often takes us through seasons of loss, heartbreak, and disappointment, where everything once bright turns to ashes. Dreams burn out, relationships fade, and hopes seem crushed under the weight of circumstances. In those painful moments, it feels as if nothing good can ever rise from the ruins. Yet this is where God's transforming power shines the brightest. He is the God who brings beauty out of ashes, who takes what is broken and makes it whole again, who turns sorrow into strength and despair into destiny. When we think something is finished beyond repair, He sees the raw material for a miracle. The ashes of your past are not evidence of God's absence, but proof that He is preparing something more beautiful. than what was lost. God's nature has always been to redeem. From the beginning of time, He has taken what was formless and void and filled it with life and purpose. The pain you have endured is not wasted in His hands. Every tear you have cried has been counted. And every wound has the potential to become a testimony of His grace. He allows certain things to burn away, not to destroy you, but to purify what remains, so that something greater can emerge. Just as gold is refined through fire, your life is refined through trials. The ashes represent what once was, but they also hold the foundation for what will be. God never leaves the ashes untouched. He breathes life into them, shaping them into something far more glorious than what came before. When you surrender your pain to Him, He begins His work of restoration. You may not understand how or when it will happen, but God never fails to rebuild. Sometimes His rebuilding looks different from what we expect, because He is not trying to return you to what you had. He is creating something new. The beauty He brings is not just external, it's a transformation of the heart, a renewal of faith, a deeper awareness of His presence. What once caused you to weep will one day cause you to worship. The same ground that saw your tears will witness your triumph. Even in the darkest seasons, God's promise remains steadfast. The ashes of your life can become the very soil where joy blossoms again. What you lost does not define your story. God's restoration does. His timing is perfect, and His creativity knows no limits. He can rewrite your narrative with colors of hope, peace, and strength where once there was only pain. Every broken moment carries the potential of a divine masterpiece waiting to be revealed. When God turns ashes into beauty, He not only restores what was lost, but multiplies it in ways beyond human understanding. What once looked like destruction becomes the birthplace of purpose, and what once seemed dead becomes a living testimony of His redeeming love. There are times when life feels silent, when prayers go unanswered, and when nothing around you seems to move. It's in those moments that frustration and doubt begin to whisper that maybe God has forgotten you. But the truth is, heaven is never still, even when the earth feels quiet. Divine shifts happen in the unseen, where the hand of God moves beyond the reach of human eyes. Before any breakthrough appears in your life, it is first formed in the invisible realm. God works in silence, orchestrating details, aligning circumstances, and preparing hearts to bring His promises into manifestation. The delay you experience is not denial, it's divine timing. What you cannot see is often far more powerful than for God's greatest work is done in the background, where faith, not sight, is required. When a seed is buried underground, it looks like it has been lost, but in reality, it is preparing to sprout. The soil hides its transformation, but growth is taking place in secret. The same is true for your life. You may feel buried beneath responsibilities, pain, or waiting. But beneath the surface, God is cultivating your miracle. Every prayer you have whispered, every tear you have shed, and every moment you've held on to faith when it was hard has been building unseen momentum. God is not idle. He is intentional. He uses stillness to strengthen your spirit silence to shape your character, and hiddenness to prepare your heart for what's coming. Divine shifts are not sudden to God. They only seem sudden to us because we cannot see the preparation. Before Joseph was lifted to power in Egypt, years of unseen favor were positioning him for that exact moment. Before David was crowned king, God was working quietly in the fields, building the heart of a shepherd into the soul of a leader. Before Jesus performed his first miracle, 30 years of divine preparation were unfolding quietly in Nazareth. God always works in the unseen before revealing his power in the visible. The waiting is not wasted. It is the womb of transformation. When you don't see movement, it doesn't mean there is no progress. Faith is the bridge between what is invisible and what is coming into view. God is turning hearts, moving obstacles, opening doors, and aligning opportunities that will meet you in his perfect time. The enemy wants you to give up during the silence, but silence is where God builds strength. The unseen realm is where he writes the chapters of your story that will soon unfold before the world's eyes. What seems delayed is being divinely arranged for your good. Trust that every quiet moment carries purpose and every hidden shift carries promise. The unseen hand of God is still writing your miracle. And when the time is right, what he has prepared in secret will be revealed in glory. Pain is one of life's greatest teachers, though it never feels that way while we are walking through it. Every heartbreak, loss, and disappointment carries a hidden assignment. Preparation for a higher purpose. God never wastes pain. He uses it as a refining fire to shape your character, strengthen your faith, and align your life with his divine calling. What feels like breaking is often building. When God allows seasons of hardship, he is not punishing you, he is preparing you. He knows that purpose without preparation can destroy a person. So he allows discomfort to produce endurance, maturity, and wisdom. The very experiences that caused you to weep are often the same ones that equip you to lead, to love deeper, and to walk in compassion for others. In Scripture, every person who carried great purpose first endured great pain. Joseph was betrayed and imprisoned before he ruled in Egypt. Moses spent years in the desert before he led his people to freedom. David was hunted by Saul before he sat on the throne. Even Jesus himself walked the road of suffering before the glory of resurrection. Pain precedes purpose because it transforms the heart. It strips away pride, fear, and dependence on the world, leaving only trust in God. When you suffer, you are drawn closer to him, learning to rely on his presence instead of your own strength. Every trial becomes a tool in his hands to build you into who you were created to be. Your pain gives birth to empathy and spiritual authority. When you have walked through darkness and found light, you carry hope for others still in the shadows. God uses your wounds as bridges of healing for those who feel broken. The areas where you've bled become the very places from which you will bless others. Pain gives you depth. It teaches you what comfort truly means, so that when God calls you to comfort others, you do it with understanding and sincerity. Every scar becomes a testimony of his faithfulness, a reminder that you survived what was meant to destroy you. Pain also clarifies purpose by removing what is unnecessary. It forces you to let go what was never meant to stay and prepares you to receive what God has planned. Through pain, your priorities shift, your faith deepens, and your heart, sensitive to the voice of the Holy Spirit, you begin to see that what once felt like an ending was actually the training ground for destiny. Every tear was watering the soil for your future calling. God allows the fire not to burn you, but to refine you. When you emerge, you are stronger, purer, and ready to carry the weight of the blessing He has prepared. Pain is never the final chapter of a believer's story. It is the preparation that makes the next chapter possible, turning suffering into strength and trials into transformation. Faith is not passive belief. It is active expectation. It is the unwavering conviction that God will do what He has promised, even when nothing around you suggests it. True faith doesn't surrender to circumstances. It stands firm in the face of them. Many people mistake faith for quiet acceptance, but that genuine faith is not about giving up. It's about looking forward. When you walk by faith, you don't bow to fear, delay, or disappointment. You rise each day expecting God to move, to answer, and to fulfill His word. Faith demands that your heart stays alive with anticipation, that your spirit stays ready for breakthrough, even in the midst of struggle. It believes in advance what will only make sense in retrospect. The essence of faith lies in trust, not in sight. The Bible reminds us that we walk by faith, not by what we see. That means even when doors close, even when prayers seem unanswered, and even when the night feels long, you keep expecting light. Expectation fuels miracles. Every healing Jesus performed began with someone who expected something to happen. Blind Bartimaeus calling out, the woman touching His garment, the centurion believing His word. Expectation moves heaven because it is the language of faith. When you expect God to move, you give Him space to reveal His power. Faith that expects nothing will receive nothing. Faith that stands firm, declaring God's promises, invites His supernatural intervention. God never calls His people to surrender to defeat. He calls them to stand in victory. Expectation is not arrogance. It is confidence in who He is. You are not demanding your will. You are expecting His will to manifest in your life. Every delay, every trial, every setback is a test of what you truly believe. Do you surrender to the visible? Or do you hold on to the invisible truth that God is working all things together for good? The waiting season is not a punishment, it is a training ground for expectation. God often hides His work to develop your trust. He is not late. He is preparing the perfect moment to reveal what He has been forming in the unseen. Faith that demands expectation also refuses to settle. It does not make peace with fear or compromise with doubt. It keeps speaking life, praying with passion, and believing for God's best even when nothing changes. Expectation is what keeps the heart awake to possibility, the mind open to hope, and the spirit strong in adversity. The moment you stop expecting, you stop believing. Every great move of God begins with someone who dared to expect more. Faith that surrenders too soon misses the miracle that was already on the way. Expectation turns ordinary prayers into divine appointments, and impossible situations into testimonies. When faith stands tall and expects, heaven responds. God meets the level of your expectation, not the depth of your surrender to fear.